Good evening. You're watching the News at 6 with me, Ishan Russell. The News at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories, and we'll be filling in on them over the next half hour. But first, the headlines that we're tracking right now. Tight security in place for the fifth phase of polling in Bihar, voting to be held for 57 seats in the crucial final phase. Intolerance row peaks. BJP's MP Kailash Vijayvargiya retracts tweets on actor Shah Rukh Khan, but two more party colleagues continue verbal attack. The Vice President's onward visit to Brunei delayed by a day after a volcanic eruption shuts down the Badi airport. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to launch sovereign gold bond scheme tomorrow. Investors to earn 2.75% annual interest on deposit. And China and Taiwan set a date for a historic presidential meeting, but move fuels anti-China sentiments in election-bound Taiwan. The top story this evening, preparations are in place for the fifth phase of polling on Thursday. The Election Commission has pulled out all stops to ensure free and fair polling in this phase in the Bihar Assembly elections. Security is at an unprecedented high so as to ensure smooth polling. Here's a preview of the final phase of polling in Bihar.
After successfully holding 4 phases of assembly elections on October 12th, 16th and 28th and November 1st, the stage is set for the fifth and final round of voting for 57 seats in the Bihar assembly polls. 1,033 companies of state police and central paramilitary forces have been deployed to ensure free and fair polls.
We are very confident that we will conduct this election as a free, fair and participatory election, and all necessary preparations have been in place, and we are very confident.
The 57 constituencies include 24 in the Simanchal region bordering West Bengal and spread over 9 districts of Madhubani, Darbhanga, Supaul, Madhepura, Saharsa, Araria, Kishanganj, Purnia and Katihar. Let's take a look now at some of the crucial numbers of the fifth phase. A total of 57 constituencies will go to polls in this phase. 827 candidates are in the fray, out of which 58 are women. A total of 14,709 polling stations will be used and 1.55 crore people are eligible to cast their vote in the fifth phase. Prominent among those whose fate will be decided in the last phase include Senior Minister Bijendra Prasad Yadav of the JDU, RJD Legislature Party Leader Siddiqui, Minister Narendra Narayan Yadav and Lalu Prasad's close aide Bhola Yadav. Except for 2 seats, polling will take place in the remaining 55 constituencies at the scheduled time of 7 am to 5 pm. In the 2 Naxal-hit constituencies in Saharsa district, the poll time has been cut short by 2 hours and would end at 3 pm. The BJP has fielded a maximum of 38 candidates while LJP nominees are contesting in 11. The Rashtriya Lok Samta Party has put up candidates in 5 constituencies and Hindustani Awam Morcha in 3. JDU candidates are trying their luck in 25 seats, RJD in 20 and the Congress in 12. Like in the previous 4 phases, there is a bitter fight between the NDA and the Grand Alliance of the JDU, RJD and Congress in all 57 seats in the 5th round. This round would also be watched keenly to see if All India Majlis-e-Ittehad-ul-Muslimin of Asauddin Owaisi manages to successfully launch itself in Bihar. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Let's go across to our correspondent Vishal Daya, who's been tracking the election campaign, and he joins us live from Purnia. Vishal, if we talk about this phase, quite critical though, and given the polarization that we've seen, as far as the political rhetoric is concerned, there certainly was an attempt. How is it on the ground? Is the electorate divided?
Well, that is something which is a million-dollar question as of now, Ishan, and this is a question to which not only us but also the leaders of the political parties are finding answer to. But one thing which is certain out here on the ground as far as voters is concerned, specifically in this phase, is that we're hoping that the previous, voter turnout record which has been set by the previous 4 phases, that is something which everybody is hoping will be surpassed by the voters in this particular phase. We've seen, hectic activity being undertaken by the district administration officials in almost all districts. We travelled to the nearby districts of Araria and Madhepura today as well. And the voter awareness program is something which the election commission officials is giving a lot of emphasis out here, in addition to preparing the polling booths as well as ensuring the security arrangements. And out here in Purnia, where we are standing right now, just a short while ago, Ishan, we saw a candle march being taken out by school children, by youngsters trying to once again make the voter aware of that one ultimate power he has of casting his vote when the elections come. And this being done just 12 hours before the polling takes place. So obviously there is a lot of crowd which you could see right behind me. It seems these activities like these, candle march and posters and banners asking voters to come out, seems to be making a lot of effect out here. So we're hoping that a number of voters will come out tomorrow, and on what lines have they been divided is something which we'll get to know on 8th only.
Alright, we'll have to wait till the 8th till that, but then what are the voters thinking right now? Let's try to delve into that a little, Vishal. As far as what's in the voters' mind, are there local issues? Is it the big battle between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chief Minister Nitish Kumar? Is it more a presidential election? Or are the electorate still talking about basic grassroots issues that have still not been addressed even in 2015 in Bihar?
Well, yes, you're right. It has been a big battle. In fact, it has been a battle of big political leaders. And it started like that only. It started as such. It started with, a face-off between Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, and Nitish Kumar, the Chief Minister. Both of them throughout the campaign, and both sides, specifically the Grand Alliance and the National Democratic Alliance, both of them and their leaders, exchanged barbs on the issue of development. They claimed, both sides claimed that it is them only who can bring development to the state. But then in between, the taste changed, the fervor changed, a number of acrimonious charges were exchanged between both sides on several issues, and there were statements which came under scrutiny from the Election Commission. There were statements which were objected to by one side or the other. But on the ground, when you speak to the voters out here, on the ground, when you ask them about what exactly might be influencing them, one thing, it might sound repetitive as well, but one thing which seems to be at the center of this entire campaign, and which seems to be still the voter at the ground level seems to be looking for, is that one person whom they are going to elect, that one government which they are going to elect, which might bring some change out here in the way they live, in the way they get the basic amenities, in the way their life goes on every day, be it related to power, education, health, whatever it is. But they're looking for something which with which they can improve their life, with which their surroundings can improve, and that is something which as I was mentioning earlier, it seems that is something which is propelling these voters to come out in large numbers and cast their vote. But we have to wait till tomorrow 7 a.m. as to see how many of them line up.
Alright, we'll have to leave it over there, but Vishal, of course, keeping a track of all those developments as they unfold in Bihar. Final phase of voting. We hope all the voters who are watching in and tuning into this program do go out and vote tomorrow. It's the final chance to make change. Let's move on over from here. BJP leaders are continuing to stoke controversy over the raging intolerance debate today, leaving the party red-faced amidst its attempt to do damage control. Now, while one of the party's MPs retracted from his remarks on actor Shah Rukh Khan, others joined in today to step up the attack. Meanwhile, a BJP ad in Bihar on the beef row has added to the list of worries for the ruling party.
BJP MP Kailash Vijayvargiya retracted his tweets on actor Shah Rukh Khan on Wednesday, claiming he was misconstrued. On Tuesday, he had launched a tweet attack on the actor over his reaction on incidents of intolerance, trying to paint him as an anti-nationalist. Under fire for the remark, he retracted a day later, saying he did not mean to hurt anyone. But two more BJP leaders added to the controversy by continuing their verbal attack on the Bollywood actor, comparing him to 2611 mastermind Hafiz Saeed.
ये लोग आतंक की भाषा ही यहाँ बोल रहे हैं। मुझे लगता है शाहरुख खान की भाषा में और हाफिज सईद की भाषा में कोई अंतर नहीं है।
ये बहुत शर्म की बात है शाहरुख खान को, जो इस तरह की बयानबाजी करके हिंदुस्तान की छवि खराब कर रहे हैं। और मैं समझती जो इस तरह की बात करते हैं वो हिंदुस्तानी नहीं हो सकते, निश्चित रूप से वो पाकिस्तानी एजेंट है।
remarks drew sharp criticism from the opposition, especially the Congress, a day after it took out a unity march to raise the issue with President Pranab Mukherjee. But the BJP put the blame of the controversy on the actor himself.
ये नहीं कि कोई एक व्यक्ति, आज हर समुदाय, चाहे वो हिंदू है, सिख है, जैन है, बौद्ध है, हमारे मुस्लिम समुदाय के लोग हैं, अगर वो अपनी शिकायत दर्ज करते हैं, इस सरकार पर आपत्ति करते हैं, तो सरकार उनको अपमानित करती है।
शायद शाहरुख खान के परिवार का इतिहास उन्हें पता नहीं। शाहरुख खान के परिवार ने आजाद हिंद फौज में नेतृत्व किया, देश की आजादी की लड़ाई लड़ी, और ऐसे परिवार के लोगों को पाकिस्तान जाने की सलाह देना ये उचित नहीं।
अगर उन्हें कुछ ऐसा लग रहा था कि कुछ लोग गलत बात कर रहे हैं और देश की एकता और अखंडता के लिए वो खतरा है, तो बजाय इसके कि उसकी पर बयान दें, वो कोई सही रास्ता समझाने की कोशिश करें, लोग उनकी बात मानेंगे। अगर वो ऐसी बात न कहते तो मेरी पार्टी के लोग भी उस पर उस तरह की टिप्पणी नहीं करते।
Amid all this, a new BJP advertisement in Bihar has stoked further controversy. Coming a day before the final phase of polling in the state, the ad questions Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar's silence on statements made by his allies on the beef row. Leaders of the anti-BJP alliance lodged a complaint with the Election Commission about the advertisement, demanding immediate action.
चुनाव आयोग ने मॉडल कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट के आर्टिकल 1 के तहत 1 नवंबर को स्पष्ट निर्देश दिए थे कि ऐसे इश्तिहार बीजेपी न दे जो समाज में घृणा, हिंसा, वैमनस्य को बढ़ावा दे। बीजेपी ने चुनाव आयोग के निर्देशों का उल्लंघन करते हुए ऐसे इश्तिहार देना कायम रखा है।
Last week, the Election Commission had clamped a ban on publication of 2 advertisements by BJP on quota conspiracy. The poll panel also issued warning against printing of such ads during the polling process. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's now take a look at other national news and updates nationwide. Nestle has announced that its product Maggi noodles will be back in its shelves this month. The company said that the government-approved labs have found the newly manufactured samples to be safe. In June, the food regulator had banned Maggi, saying it was unsafe and hazardous after finding lead levels beyond permissible limits. Justice T.S. Thakur is set to succeed Justice H.L. Dattu as the next Chief Justice of India. His name is recommended to the government by Justice Dattu. The present CJI will retire on the 2nd of December and Justice Thakur will be sworn in by President Pranab Mukherjee on the same day. In a relief to senior IAS officer Ashok Khemka, the Khattar government in Haryana has dropped a charge sheet against him. The charge sheet was filed by the Huda government last year. The bureaucrat alleged that he was persecuted for cancelling a land deal involving Congress President Sonia Gandhi's son-in-law Robert Vadra. The National Green Tribunal has asked Delhi and 4 northern states to issue notifications to farmers to stop burning crops. The directive came a day after dense smog engulfed the national capital region due to crop burning in the neighbouring states. The NGT has also asked the district magistrates to submit a report to the respective state pollution boards. The third leg of Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari's Jakarta-Bali Brunei trip has come under an ash cloud, and quite literally so. A volcanic eruption in Bali has resulted in a thick haze that has suspended all air travel. The Vice President visited a temple and a university in Bali today, signalling an expansion of educational and cultural ties. Here's a special report.
A thick haze after the Mount Rinjani volcano erupted in Bali has now impacted Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari's tour. All takeoffs at 2 Indonesian airports, Bali and Mataram, have been suspended tentatively till 8:45 a.m. on Thursday, which means that the Vice President's departure from Bali stands delayed. On Wednesday morning, Mr. Ansari unveiled a bust of Mahatma Gandhi at the Udayana University in the city. He later also met students at the university.
Om Swastiastu, Namaste.
In his address, the Vice President stressed on the depth of India-Indonesia ties down the centuries, the vast commonalities in democratic foundations, and the need for greater exchange among the youth.
As 2 vibrant and growing democracies, we share similar challenges and have similar opportunities for growth. Our shared socio-economic agenda calls for intensive cooperation and consultation for economic development and social empowerment of our people. Our cooperation is for mutual benefit and is guided by the requirements and priorities of the people and the government of Indonesia.
India's Ministry of Ayush and University also signed an MOU on Ayurveda, continuing on the theme of greater cultural contact.
When we are talking of cultural relationship between India and Indonesia, we start from maybe the first centuries until today. The relationship in education between India and Indonesia actually build a very comprehensive relationship between G2G relationships and also university-university relationships.
MEA officials said a fresh departure time would be fixed after Bali authorities conduct a review of the situation. The Brunei visit would be the first high-level Indian bilateral visit to the country. Weber Verma's report for Rajya Sabha Television.
Time for us to take a very quick break. Lots more on the other side. Do stay tuned.
The coal juggernaut rolls out in Bihar. Modi's NDA takes on Nitish's Grand Alliance. Who will win this most important election battle since 2014? Watch Verdict 2015, Monday through Saturday on Rajya Sabha Television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Now, ahead of the Diwali celebrations, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will launch 3 important gold-related schemes tomorrow. These are sovereign gold bond schemes that allow people to buy government-guaranteed bonds instead of physical gold. The scheme allows investors to earn up to 2.75% annual interest on their investments. Upon exit from the scheme, investors get an average of the closing price of gold of the previous week. The gold monetization scheme is aimed at mobilizing over 20,000 tons of gold in India's temples, shrines and Indian households. The third scheme allows the government to directly sell certified gold coins and bars through MMTC outlets.
India has got a kind of reserve of the gold, and that should be monetized and it should be recycled. So the idea of the government was that these people should come out, deposit this gold with the government or with the bank, and in lieu they should earn some interest, and as and when they want the gold back, that gold can be delivered.
With this paper gold, when you buy, we don't have to import gold from overseas, for which we need foreign exchange. So our dependence and reliance on foreign exchange comes down, which is very much required for the stability of our economy.
Let's go across to our correspondent Krishnanand Tripathi, who got us those interviews, and will help us understand, Krishnanand. First, as far as the objectives of these 3 schemes, it's certainly to boost as far as the economy is concerned, but how much of a boost can it be?
Ishan, see, India is the biggest importer of the gold in the world. On an average, world produces 2,500 tons of gold every year, and India buys 1/3 of that. And it's a huge cost. It's $60–70 billion a year, and it puts pressure on Indian currency. It puts pressure on India's current account deficit. You would remember in 2012-13, India's current account deficit, it went up to over $80–90 billion. So in this sense, this scheme is good for the economy, this scheme is good for the country, but it is not as good for the investors.
Why is that so? What's the fine print? Why should the investor be wary? Why would you say that?
Ishan, the government's aim is to mobilize this huge amount of asset, which is valued at roughly $1 trillion. That is half of India's GDP. But the return on investment is very low for investors. There are 2–3 issues with the schemes. Like in case of gold monetization scheme, there is the issue of conversion of form. Suppose you buy gold in form of jewelry, but if you take it to the bank for deposit and to earn interest, then it will have to be recycled and converted into the bars and coins. Only then you can get the interest. So there will be some psychological issues, some emotional issues. In case of gold, hybrid bond scheme, there are 2-3 issues. There is a lock-in period of 5 years. Before that you can't exit. And the interest, which is just 2.5% and 3%, which is not comparable with the Kisan Vikas Patra, senior citizen saving schemes, where you can earn 8.5%, 9%. Second, some people, some experts, they were hoping that these interest earning, they will be exempt from tax. But government has levied tax. So scheme is good for the country, but it may not be as good for the investors.
All right, Krishnanand, we'll leave it over there. But thank you very much for coming in and helping us understand these 3 important measures that will be launched, 3 schemes to monetize gold to be launched by the government tomorrow. Let's hear what the public response to that is. But thanks very much for that, Krishnanand. Moving on to some international news now, and presidents of China and Taiwan will meet in a historic first, culminating in nearly 8 years of quickly improved relations. Now, even though the meeting is expected to break the ice and maintain status quo, it carries considerable risks for both sides.
In a historic meeting, leaders from China and Taiwan will meet for the first time since 1949. Taiwan's President Ma Ying-jeou will hold talks with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Singapore on mutual relations across the Taiwan Straits.
台湾海峡两岸关系保持和平发展，符合两岸的利益，也符合整个地区和世界的利益。
China claims sovereignty over Taiwan and views the island as a breakaway province. Its government has even threatened to use military force if Taiwan tries to gain outright independence. But relations have improved since President Ma took office in 2008. Taiwan assured the meeting is only to promote peace while maintaining status quo. But the decision has only heightened anti-China sentiments.
两岸领导人会面是一件大事，涉及台湾的尊严跟国家的利益。在如此混乱仓促的状态下，让国人知道对台湾的民主政治是有伤害。
The US said it will welcome any steps to reduce tensions between the two sides.
We welcome the steps both sides of the Taiwan Strait have taken in recent years to reduce tensions and improve cross-strait relations. The United States has a deep and abiding interest in peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait.
The meeting carries risks for both sides. Taiwan goes to polls in less than 3 months, and fears of growing Chinese influence have led to protests in Taiwan. If a pro-independence candidate becomes president, it could be a cause of concern for China too. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Time now for all the sports action in Sportsbeat. Sardar Singh will lead the Indian hockey squad in the World Hockey League finals this month. The squad includes goalkeeper P.R. Srijesh, Virendra Ratra, Kotadeep Singh, amongst others. Having already qualified for the Rio Olympics next year, the tournament is seen as a key test for the side's preparations. Real Madrid and Manchester City have qualified for the Champions League knockout round. The Real Madrid beat Paris Saint-Germain 1-0 in Group A clash to secure a place in the last 16 for the 19th straight season, while Manchester City secured a place in the Champions League knockout stage after beating Sevilla 3-1. Wayne Rooney's late header secured Manchester United a 1-0 victory over Russian side CSKA Moscow in the Champions League. The victories also helped United secure top spot in Group B of the Champions League. Defending champions Barcelona will be eyeing a place in the last 16 of the Champions League tonight. They'll take on Bate Borisov in Group E clash. A third consecutive Champions League victory for the Catalans will mathematically ensure them a place in the knockout stages. That's it from us. Goodbye.